Alright, hello everyone. Today is going to be about racing. Everything we're going to talk about today is all about how a horse behaves in the opening to the middle leg, what happens after this point, why do I keep mentioning that this point is the most important. It's actually very similar to the recent video by Seriru, where he talks about the important skills and stuff for champions meet, because that's what we're going to be using as our example. And he basically says stuff like groundwork's very important, champions meet is an acceleration game. He's very correct. It is an acceleration game, and we basically want to buy as much acceleration skills with proper timing for activations for this kind of tracks. And so for the experiment here, we will be using the upcoming Champions Meets track, which is the 2400 meter Tokyo Derby, right? This is the Taurus Cup Tokyo Turf, 2400 meters, medium counterclockwise, which is the exact one that I'm using for this track over here. Alright, so for the experiment here, we will be using Daiwa Scarlet. Daiwa Scarlet, I'm going to be putting her in the front runner position, and then we will be showing you the skills over here. But before we get into the very specific details of racing, let's talk about the update to the trivia sheet. Because for the trivia sheet, basically in the previous one, a JP commentator told me about the ways to judge a horse's success. If I compared all of the horses from now on to horses like Oguri, TM Opera, Kitasan, we'll basically get nowhere, because I'm comparing them with people with really big wins and really huge amounts of prize money. But a horse can just be very successful as long as they win a certain amount of races, they earn a certain amount of money, get a certain amount of first places. So because of that, I've decided to expand the sheet a little bit. Now we can see stuff like the in real life win rates, as well as the earnings section for these different horses. So I've updated Kuren-chan a little bit here. You can see that she has run 18 total races, 9 wins, 3 second places, 1 third place, and then 5 other positions. See total earnings of 449 million yen, and she was sold for 26 million yen. So overall, a very good horse, right? Being able to break even from that. I do not know how much it costs to actually maintain and train a horse, or pay the jockeys, or do all these medical fees and whatnot. So I do not know if they actually broke even or anything like that, but I don't think you really need to care about that. Just need to look at your favorite horse, see how much winnings, how much win rate she got in real life, and then from there you can actually do the One Piece thing, where you just compare the bounties between the people and then be like, oh, my One Piece character sweeps your One Piece character and whatnot, power scaler shit, you know. But in this game, honestly, if you like your waifu, you can at least see what kind of records they had in real life. So for me, Kitasan Black, Oguri Cap, Ghost Ship, Haru Rara, all very big names right now in the global. Kitasan Black is going to be someone who has one of the highest earnings in the entirety of JP horse racing, 1,876,000,000 yen. And then over here we have Ghost Ship, who comes quite close. Later on, I will put TM Opera. TM Opera is the one that Kitasan broke the record for. TM Opera held the record for most earnings until Kitasan Black came into the place. And then for Ghost Ship, she is about 1,397,000,000 yen. So she did win a lot of money. It's just that the incident itself is a 12 billion yen incident, and basically none of these girls would ever earn 12 billion yen. So Ghost Ship caused a pretty massive loss by throwing one very important race. And you can see here from that 9 any position placements, right? Ghost Ship has a history of choosing to not win, basically, in a way, right? 9, I do want to win, and then 13, I just win. So basically, Ghost Ship's the smartest of all the horses. Basically, I will make sure I don't get myself injured. I'll just throw some of these races, but I'll win enough that I'll actually be a very significant earner. And so they have to keep me around, and then I retire, and then I can just bang ladies left and right, right? Ghost Ship is a really smart horse who probably, I don't know, man. Like, look at this shit here. Literally 9. All these other horses, 2, 5, and 3, and then there's Haru Rara with 101. So technically there's one that beats Ghost Ship. But Ghost Ship, really powerful horse, by the way. Very good lineage and bloodline. It's just that maybe he just chooses not to win sometimes. That's why the jockey is known to say, like, I just hope Ghost Ship is normal today. Some shit like that, right? Moving on, we have Haru Rara, 113 races, 0 wins, 5 second places, 3 third places, and 101 any position placements, with a total earnings of 1 million yen in her entire career. Right, but she also managed to win 1 after retirement, so it's not reflected in the record. And also, she is getting, well, a ton of grass from you guys. If you guys keep donating grass at this rate, you might actually get her to even more earnings, because they're technically saving money on grass, which could be quite interesting. But we'll just see what happens over here. Haru Rara in the end did manage to win a lot of people's hearts and minds, and also managed to save 1 stadium. I can't remember the name of the stadium, but I know she saved 1 stadium with all of the people coming in to buy a Haru Rara ticket, because it was considered a lucky charm back in the day, which is quite interesting. And then for Oguri Cap, we have 32 races, my goat, 22 wins, 6 second places, 1 third place, and 3 other position placements. Right, Oguri has probably the highest win rate out of all of them. I think it's a 67% win rate compared to some of these horses. I'm comparing using only the G1 wins, so that's my comparison for win rate. But if you add these, then she has a very, very high win rate in comparison to her 3 other placements. Right, earnings wise, she earns 912 million yen. I think it's lower because this was from the past, so in the past the yen was stronger, so winning this would be a lot more money now, so that's why she earns so little even though she raced so much. But whatever the case is, my Oguri has the best win rate out of all these horses over here. And Ghost Ship, if I were to do the win rate comparison, it would be like 40 something percent win rate, and Kitasan would be 60% win rate, only looking at G1s of course. So yeah, Oguri Cap still remains my goat for winning, even though she did not earn as much. But then again, this could also be inflation talking, right? So she maybe have earned a significant amount compared to some of these later horses, right? So now that we've gotten this one out of the way, I also added some little bits of additional information to the sheet. So you can see the G1 Arima Kinen, the G2 Hanshin Hinba Stakes, and the G3 Kinland Cup. How much is the payout for each of these specific races, right? G1 Arima Kinen, we have 3 million USD. For Hanshin Himba, we have 370,000 USD and 289,000 for G3. So Kuren-chan, even though she didn't win too many G1s, you still get a fat load of money for winning a lot of G2s and G3s. And also G1s, if you win some of them, you get a crazy amount of payout. So because of that, you can see Kuren-chan is pretty successful for a horse, right? Even though I only look at the G1s, but that's because my JP, Uma Musume, Pretty Derby brain is like, oh, only G1s because that's where all the inheritance and bigger skill points are. No. In real life, people just race the horse, and if they win, they get a fat load of money anyway, right? So anyway, that's pretty much it for this one. I'll be making the sheet public from now on. Take note that the only stuff that I feel like I'm not doing very well is just adding all the links here for all their relationships. Like, it's supposed to be Maruzensi's daughter into Kuren-chan or Kurofune's son/daughter into Chronogenesis. So, but I'm missing out some of them just because I'm lazy, and it's 70 years of horse history, so it's a lot of shit to go and take care of. You can go and address all of my misinfos in your own discussions, but basically I'm lazy, so I'm not going to be like 100% accurate with every single one of these horses. If it's a JP or a global Uma Pretty Derby horse, I will probably include them very high priority, but if they're not, they will be on a lower priority, so I'll add them in later. I'm just lazy. All right, so anyway, that's it for this one. This is my personal project. I'm letting you guys go and look at it. So yeah, that's it. I put all these headers over here, so it should be a bit easier to go and look at everything, right? So let's move on to the actual content for today, how to win a race, right? So for today, we will be following the story of my Daiwa Scarlet frontrunner over here. This Daiwa Scarlet has horrendous stamina. We will be running in the Champions Meet of Tokyo 2400 meter derby. So first off, what parents do I train for X horse? What skills do I look for X horse? These are things that are very, very common, and the Uma later really just solves all of your problems in one go. That's why I think that this is the best tool for any player. First off, we click on the skill chart mode over here. We activate the HP consumption if you want to see this line over here, and then you just run, you insert your stats over here and whatnot, and then you just run this sheet over here. Make sure it's the right strategy and make sure it's the right stats, and then now it will generate the lengths. So what does L mean? L means bashin. Bashin means horse length basically, and so these things are just telling you how much distance you can generate by getting these skills to pop on your character. It's very, very important that you get these good skills to help you win the game, because it gives you a little bit of an edge over the others, even though it's RNG triggers, right? You want to get as many skills as possible that help you to win the game, and this Bashin chart will show you most of them. So now you're wondering, why the hell are you only showing me all of these goal recoveries over here? The reason being is that this horse has 600 stamina, and so if you want to win, right, you will need to get a significant amount of stamina to pass the stamina check. Because if you look here, my horse is very, very likely to lose due to the fact her HP drops very, very fast compared to the other horse. That's why they are rating the stamina recoveries a lot higher, because if I buy the stamina recovery, you see Maestro bumps up my stamina over here, Trackblazer bumps up my stamina over here, and Restless bumps up my stamina over here. These all have basically a guaranteed trigger of a minimum value of 11, and then these all have a maximum value of 15.36 and an average of 13.89. Basically, I get distance because I am able to survive the track now. So that is so valuable in a run, because this little tiny bit here that you see in this Uma later can cost you the entire game. So stamina is the most important stat in the game, and you might be wondering why the hell did they recommend you Mystifying Murmur? It's because if I nuke the other guy's stamina, he is now equivalent to me, which means now we both have an equal chance to fight. That's why it recommends this one. But if you miss the debuff, then you will have a 0.00L gain. So you can miss the debuff, and that means that the other guy will not lose that stamina. But if you hit, you basically have another 8.96 Ls for just beating him, a chance to beat him at least, because you nuke the guy's stamina as well. Okay, so this debuff can be found on Nice Nature, and if you are going to build a Nice Nature for the upcoming Champions Meets, it is a very, very powerful tool to kill anyone else who is not running a proper stamina horse. So this is something of an advantage for a lot of people, because a lot of people don't know how important stamina is. Stamina is so important that this skill generator just prioritizes it over every other speed skill, because you need to pass the stamina check to maintain top speed all the way until the end, and if you don't, you lose the game, right? So that is how important stamina is. Once again, reiterating, stamina #1 stat in Uma Musume for winning races, right? That's why they put all these Tokyo race courses, standard distances, all very, very high up. You need the stamina. Okay, so anyway, now let's assume we actually have enough stamina. Then all of these things up here don't really matter so much. Now we go down over here, right? Let's actually pump our stamina. We will now pump out stamina to 1000. That's more than enough stamina, to the point that they basically will not recommend us any of these recoveries anymore, because getting more than enough stamina is a bit too much for you already. You don't need to have stamina anymore, right? Yeah, so you see all the recoveries now all rated as 0.00 because they don't give you anything else. You already have enough stamina to pass the check already. If the enemy maybe Mystifying Murmured you, then the stamina recoveries would be rated higher again, and so on and so forth. Anyway, we nuked it with the stamina increase, and so now we get to see the actual acceleration stuff. What is the good stuff that actually helps you to win this track? So first off, we have the Red Shift LP1211-M. This is going to be Maruzetsuki's ultimate. This is a reference to her race car status. She's nicknamed as the supercar in real life, right? 0.2 meters per second acceleration if it triggers. Over here, you are going to get quite a big boost to your speed, right? You can also click on this to see what happens. How do I get the maximum? I get the maximum if this triggers here and Resplendent Red Ace triggers over there. I get the minimum if Resplendent Red Ace triggers here, and then it carries over into Red Shift, and I get the mean, which is the average, when this happens, where Resplendent triggers to here and Red Shift triggers to here. But ultimately, no matter which one you click, you must notice this red bar over here, right? You notice whenever Red Shift triggers, I am accelerating much, much faster than all of my other horses. That's because the skill is very, very important for winning the race. It basically helps me to hit the top speed faster, and this little bit here, where I'm just faster than the other horse, is enough for me to basically make such a big distance between me and that horse that I can just probably steal the whole game, just because that horse has to catch up this distance difference with me, right? So that's why acceleration skills are very, very important, right? So this is the importance of acceleration. This is the importance of your stamina skills, as well as your stamina raw stats itself. All right, so now that you know the importance of accelerations, we can understand now most of the other game and why we are trying to do what we are trying to do. Right, let's start off with the opening leg over here. In the opening leg, this is where important position skills and positioning itself happens, and this is the most important section for not getting blocked. This is also where late start can trigger. Late start means your horse comes out a bit later, so they might get stuck behind the pack, which is very, very painful, because if you get blocked, and then you lose, right? Even the JP player also says it, right? So yeah, very important section here. We basically are looking for a front runner in this position to look for groundwork, because groundwork is a skill that can activate very early on and can give you a little bit of acceleration at the start to help you get out of there, right? Because once you get out of there with this little bit of a boost, you will be in the proper position very, very likely. To activate groundwork, you need three skills activated at the start of a game, which means that you need stuff like greens that trigger at the start. You need stuff like focus that triggers at the start, right? You need all of these skills that can trigger very early on, so you can get that little bit of acceleration so that you can start going at your top speed or get into the first position. That is very, very important for front runners especially. For the others, they are not so important. For those other positions, we'll be looking at the Uma Ref Doc. Don't worry, this one is an image, so it's not a lot of reading. But basically, what happens is that runners always try to overtake the first position by going into that blue zone over here. Each of these numbers here are meters, which means that runners try to be 0.5 meters at least in front of the runner. Basically, they try to overtake the runner every single time because they're runners. They want to be in the first position. Then we have leaders. Leaders don't want to really contest for this spot. They actually don't mind playing at 3 meters or less from the first position. Betweeners don't mind playing at 6 meters or less between this position over here. And then for chasers, they can stay all the way in the back and they don't really give a shit. But they'll try to maintain this distance the entire time so that when it's time to go really fast, they will overtake here, overtake here, overtake here, and then win the game. That's why they're one of my favorites. Unfortunately, they only have very specific tracks where they are really, really very good. Alright, so there's also some additional reading over here which I highly recommend reading because you can understand more about how people are abusing certain mechanics to win the game. So if you see Haru Urara in this track, even though she is turf as G, right, she can actually help you to win the game if you understand what you're doing here. But I'm not going to really cover that strategy. You can just read this one over here and then you can Control F, look for Haru Urara sacrificial strats, because there are some strats that use Haru Urara as a bad front runner to enable certain things to happen, right? So anyway, that's for you guys to go and read. You can read the rest of these also. They give very, very good insights into speeds and accelerations at each sections of the leg, right? This one's called the Uma Racing Styles if you need to go and find it. Okay, so now we go back to the Uma later over here. The words are gone, don't worry about it, right? So groundwork, we go over here. What happens now in the opening leg is that we are all focused on positions. Just like in that chart just now, we will maintain the certain distances between the first, or for runners, in this case, they will just fight each other for the first position. So you will try aggressively to fight for each other's positions, for runners in particular, while the pace chasers and the late surgers and the end closer are kind of chilling in their respective positions. They try not to go too far behind and they focus on going in front, right? Then this will happen all the way until middle leg. This is the 1200 meter mark, which is 50% of 2400 meters. This is where most position keeps will just cancel, right? Position keeps get overridden and now everyone is free to go wherever the hell they want, right? But before this line here, anytime a skill activates for speed and that pushes you out of your ideal positions, a state called pace down will trigger, where you slow down in order to match the pace that you were trying to maintain, and that is bad. So if you do see some skills over here that have maybe a negative 0 point something, right, it means that it can trigger at a bad time and it can actually make you pace down, which slows you down and cost you a little bit of length. This is just what happens when position keep happens in a race. That one is just the price of some skills. Sometimes you need to buy that skill anyway because that skill gives you such a huge upside that it's on average going to give you more stuff, or it's going to maybe win you the game straight up if you had that skill in your kit. So sometimes you just have to take that skill, right? So anyway, that's pretty much what happens before the 1200 mark. Now, after the 1200 mark, position keep is deactivated. So you can see in career Ura scenarios, when you're training ghost ships, for example, they can suddenly go all the way from the back all the way in front because you give them so much stats that they just outstat every single horse. So the moment position keep ends, they just go all the way into the front and they beat every single horse behind them. So that's one way to understand position keep deactivating. And now over here, everyone's basically free to go wherever the hell they want. And it's also around here where the horses try to overtake each other already. They're just trying to push as hard as they can already as they're preparing for this middle leg to this final leg over here. Right, so acceleration skills, very, very important. But speed skills are also very good in the end of the middle leg. This one's called speed carry over. Alright, so Resplendent Red Ace is a very good ultimate. It has speed as well as acceleration. So if it manages to trigger around here at this mark, you have 5 seconds duration, and that lets you carry over some speed into this next section over here, which will give you a little bit of an acceleration and speed boost. Basically, you start at a higher speed compared to your opponent, and then you can go very, very fast, very, very quickly, because you started here at a certain speed and you carried that over to this here, and now you're technically at a higher level of speed than all of your other enemies. And so with a bit more acceleration skills, you can just pump yourself up all the way faster than them. So certain skills just need to randomly trigger around these areas and they can just straight up win you the game. So if you see stuff like maybe later on you look at non-stop, no stopping me. No stopping me has a chance to give you 0 length or a chance to give you 5 length sometimes. Like, that's how powerful acceleration skills and speed skills sometimes are going to be in this game. If they trigger at the right time, they straight up win you the game. And so sometimes they're just very, very worth to take, because if you just RNG enough stuff, you will eventually hit. And if you hit, you win. And that's why some horses are better than others, just because their stuff is either guaranteed value or RNG value to the point that you can straight up win the game, right? So that's going to be for front runners. just going to be this one over here, Red Shift LP1211, but there's also Resplendent Red Ace, which also gives you acceleration or higher speed. So if I get to activate it here, or if I get to activate it early on here in the acceleration phase of the final leg, I will be able to get big value out of this, and I will most likely win if I can trigger this at a proper state, right? Then there's other stuff like Groundwork, explained that already. Escape Artist, also if it triggers around here, you can get some pretty damn nasty value also, because that is additional, is it speed carryover? It's a speed carryover, yes. So you can see it links over to here, so you can carry over into this final leg area over here, right? And then also the greens that are guaranteed value here are very important, because if you can 100% get them to trigger, they can help to enable stuff like Groundwork, first of all, but they also give you raw stats, and these raw stats actually can overcap your speed. So basically, if with left-handed, you can get 1260 speed. With firm conditions, I could get 860 power. If I had 1200 power, I could get 1260 power. Very, very important stuff to overcap, because that little bit of a cap might be enough for you to go and win the race also, right? Then of course, you see Professor of Curvature always gives you some sort of value, so always buy it, totally no problems. But then there's also front runner corners, medium straightaways, front runner straightaways. These one have higher variance due to 0.05 and 0.98, but although on average it is going to give you at least some sort of value, right? So yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say for these skills and for this section over here. From the final leg onwards, you will see the horse just accelerate to their max, and then we proceed into the last spurt over here. If you notice little bumps in the speed, right, it's due to the hills over here. So if you go up a hill, you will lose a bit of speed. Once you hit the top of the hill, you will regain your speed a little bit as a bump, and then you will just run down, and that will give you a bit of a speed boost, and then you reset back to normal, and then you go back up a hill later on, or you're in the final leg. If you're in final leg, then you just start to accelerate, right? So anyway, now we're going to the last spurt. In the last spurt, this is just the biggest stamina / guts check of your life. If you pass this check, you'll be able to maintain your top speed all the way to the end, and that will carry over all of those little skills that triggered over here into the late game. And if you maintain that lead all the way, your odds of winning are going to be very, very good. But if you have not enough stamina, just like just now, you basically lose, right? Because you lose a little bit of a dip here, and that loss of a dip, right, in that speed is enough to make you lose the entirety of the game. So be very, very careful with your stamina and make sure you buy the correct skills. Then of course, if you want to train your waifu, you can always force it. Just force it. Maybe their unique is not very good, but you can still inherit the good uniques. For runners, unfortunately, I think the only good one right now is Maruzensky's. There's no other good ones, but it is still a very decent option for me because of Resplendent Red Ace, where if it triggers due to RNG, I will be able to just straight up win, right? So I think it's still worth it to try and run some of these horses because they are still really, really good ultimates. Of course, if you have Oguri Cap, feel free to run Oguri Cap. In fact, Oguri Cap is one of my aces also. I'm using Oguri, Daiwa, and Nice Nature, because if I nuke other people's stamina, my Oguri should be able to live, my Daiwa Scarlet should be able to dodge some of the debuffs, because actually for Nice Nature, one of her skills, she has a certain range to it. So if she's not in the proper position due to not good enough stats, I will actually be able to dodge if I'm all the way in the front. That's why I'm building a Daiwa Scarlet, just to counter this kind of interaction, right? Because in our testing, we realized that actually sometimes Nice Nature doesn't really hit the guy in the front with one of her debuffs, which means I get to dodge one, which means all I need to do is just buy a better recovery, because Daiwa's innate recovery is not very consistent, which means I just need to buy Swinging Maestro. Swinging Maestro and maybe about 900-ish stamina should be enough for me to survive one debuff at least. But if there's multiple debuffers, then we'll all be equal. We'll all be equally no stamina, then we all die together. Alright, so yeah, that's pretty much it for this little guide here. There are of course other positions, but I do not have the time to cover them, otherwise this video will be a bit too long. If you just want to check, you just need to go here, change the strategy, run the simulator, and the simulator will try to find you some other very, very good skills to inherit, right? For pace chasers, for late surgers, stuff like Majuro Ryan's ultimate is very good. Stuff like Taiki Shuttle is very good for the second and third positions. Extremely powerful, in fact. My Oguri has these two over here. I do not have a Majuro Ryan, otherwise I would try to get one, but not really a major issue. Maru and Taiki are way more reliable in my opinion, so I think that this is going to be a lot better. And also all of your skills will just straight up change, right? You will not see groundworks, for example, for a late surger. That doesn't really help. They stay at like 6 meters away from the front, so what's the point of being faster at the start? It doesn't really do anything. You should just take all the stuff that gives you acceleration probably later on in your life, and if it triggers over here, GG. Look at that bump over there, you won the game. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the quick summary for a race as well as how to win. And I also gave you examples of horses that I was training for my own champions meet. If it is going to be Tokyo Derby, then I'm pretty much already done. All I need to do is train one more parent for Daiwa and hunt down for groundwork, which is a very hard skill to acquire. I believe the JP YouTuber also talked about that one. Groundwork is a very, very important skill, just like I said, but at the same time, it's also very, very hard to get. So what is the best way is just through parentage, honestly. You just need to RNG it through your parents, or if you really want to, you bring like maybe an air groove and you just keep clicking the hints until you get the groundwork skill, which is pretty cringe because you have to run a one guts card and you're probably not clicking this guts card for that exclamation, for anything else except for the exclamation mark, which is quite sacrificial. So I don't like that, which is why I'm going to probably put this on my parents and then pass it down if I can. If I cannot, then so be it. I just don't use groundwork, so be it. Whatever happens, happens. It's RNG game anyway, right? That's how people's waifus can actually win in the future. I've seen people run Rice Shower in the future. I've seen people run Urara in the future. People who run Vodka only, Dobo only. Yeah, there's so many types of players in the future, and all they do is just try to buy all of the good gambling skills and then pray that their horse, their waifu, gambles harder than the other guy's waifu, right? So that's just how it is in the end game. The early game is all like, oh, this game is just pure RNG, bullshit just happens. And well, once you understand it, then it also becomes, hey, I understand everything, but it's still bullshit and RNG will still happen. It's just that I know which RNGs I'm looking for. So it's controlled RNG chaos in the end game of Uma Musume. Once you understand this part, it's going to be a lot more fun because you will just look at the race and you will know exactly what happened and how you're losing and how you're winning at the same time. If I see Resplendent Red Ace trigger at the right timing, I'm going to cheer because I know I'm probably going to win that one. But if I see another one activate at the same time, I'll be like, holy shit, this is going to be a very close race. And that's where the fun happens for me, at least. Alright, so that's going to be it, I think, for this video here. Thanks guys for watching. If you have any other questions, feel free to comment down below, and I'm always looking for any feedbacks and whatnot if you want to add more information for my trivia, information for my Uma Musume videos. Alright, thanks guys for watching, and I shall see you guys next time. Bye bye.